Welcome to the Elevated Trader Podcast. I am Dr. Kristin Kidgel.
And I am Tracy Ball. Join us every week as we journey into becoming better traders.
We believe becoming better traders involves elevating our skill, mindset, and our health. In each episode, we will discuss the current book we are exploring, and we invite you to join us on this journey.
Are you ready to elevate your trading, mindset, and health to the next level? Let's do this. All right, welcome back to the Elevated Trader Podcast. This is part 4 of the Man's Search for Meaning. Kristin, how's it going?
Hello, Tracy. It's going great.
That's good. That's good.
Book's getting a lot easier to read.
It is. Now we're getting into a section here where he's actually spending a little bit of time talking about love, and it's probably the only part of the book that he does. But a few of the things that he says is the truth that love is the ultimate and the highest goal to which man can aspire. He also goes on to say that the salvation of man is through love and in love. And then further on, he goes to say that love goes very far beyond the physical person of the beloved. It finds its deepest meaning in his spiritual being, his inner self. When you read this, what were some of your takeaways about the whole thing?
Well, first off, I think we'd have to give it a little bit more context, just backing up a hair. And then retrospective, he wrote this after he was out.
Mm-hmm.
So he's recalling things that he went through. And so I'm thinking he was probably just in flow when he was writing this part, because he's recalling that when he started thinking about his wife, it just totally took him to a different place.
Mm-hmm.
And with that, because of his background, before being imprisoned, I think he took that and he was writing it, and he's probably going, wow, okay, so, there's death and there's life, but then there's life with love. And so I believe that that's kind of where he was coming from, because he probably felt it to the bone, like to the core. And he's like, how do I express this in pen and paper for my readers to digest that? And so I think that's my thought. And you're right, he doesn't really go into it a lot. It's just this one part. But when I was reading it, and I know that you and I talked, when we weren't recording, that this was one of those parts that right out of the gate stood out the most. And so I think what ends up happening is you do some self-reflection,
Mm-hmm.
not just like, who in your life do you love? You go, because that's the first thing I did. I'm like, okay, I really love that person, and I really love this person. And, you put names and faces and feelings to them. And then it's almost like, okay, he doesn't talk about this much. If he did, I'm not pulling it up in my brain, but self-love is a love
Mm-hmm.
in itself. So this is hard. This is hard because we're all a work in progress, right?
Yeah, for sure.
And we all have things that we love, and we all have people that we love. If you don't, then it's kind of a sad existence, right?
Mm-hmm.
So do we wake up every day and be grateful for having those opportunities to say, I know what love is?
Mm-hmm.
And is he saying, hold on to that? Think about that day in and day out. Let that bring you joy every day. And, you talked about it, and it's going to come up, but the mental vacations, maybe that's the way out of stress and perseverance and surviving.
I think that his focus was really on the power that love plays in all of that, right?
Yeah.
So to put it into more perspective, what he was talking about were having these moments where he would start daydreaming. He would actually psychologically remove himself from the camp and put him in a place where he would have conversations with his wife. Now, his wife's not there. Most likely she's already been exterminated, and he doesn't know it yet. He has no idea whether his wife is alive or dead. But he is having these moments where he is removed from the camp in his mind and having these conversations with his beloved wife. And these are moments that through that experience, he found some tremendous amount of strength, healing, and empowerment. And I think that's really the key here. And I think that's what he's trying to say with the salvation of man is through love and in love. And I don't have a life or a background that is remotely as traumatic as what this is, but I do have an experience that I can pull off of that I'm reminded of when I read this. And I don't know if I've ever shared it with you before, and I may have. I may have shared it on the podcast. I can't remember, but I used to be an electrical apprentice. And when I was doing my apprenticeship, I was working at one particular location, and one of the journeymen, he had that attitude of, you're an apprentice and I was treated like garbage, so now it's your turn to be treated like garbage. And it was kind of a rite of passage, and that was his MO. And he was terrible to work with, just absolutely terrible. And I remember, because first of all, I'm not the type of person that needs that type of motivation. I'm going to motivate myself. So, the more praise you give me, I'm going to motivate myself even further. That's just who I am. You don't need to berate me. So there were moments where I actually contemplated quitting. It was that difficult. And it takes a lot to make me decide that I'm going to quit. I've got a lot of perseverance. But I remember one day I had enough, and I just thought, I can't imagine being able to do this any further. And I went home and I meditated for a while, maybe prayed a little bit, and I asked for my heart to change. I can't remember exactly what all I said, but the next morning when I went back to work, it was literally like there was a light switch that had changed. Now, he hadn't changed.
In him? In you?
My perception of him, period.
Oh, okay.
And so my interactions, my entire experience with him was 100%. It was like night and day. It was 100% changed. Now, nothing in him changed. It all came from here. It all came from my heart. Something had happened that night when I asked for my heart to change. That, first of all, allowed me to be open to that concept. And my heart opened up and it filled with love. It just filled with an ultimate love. So now when I go to work, I'm looking at this man through glasses that are shaded with love instead of hate. And it made a huge amount of difference. I did not for 1 second feel any of the feelings that I had before, as far as this is uncomfortable, this is unreal, this is ridiculous, why is he treating us like this? This isn't fair. None of those feelings came in at all. It was I could see all of a sudden that he was a human being. I could see him through a heart of compassion.
That's amazing.
And it was the one experience that I've had in my life that was kind of, it stood out to me, and it was life-changing. And I think that's what this talks about. That whole, like I said, salvation of man is through love and in love. And I hate to compare the two, but it's relevant to me, which is what reminded me of, or this reminded me of it anyway. So.
What a great memory.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And anybody that's listened to any of the stuff that we recorded together, our backgrounds are different, and maybe the amount of love and attention that was my mother growing up. I didn't know this, but as I became an adult, she had told me that love, hugs, kisses, telling someone you loved, she wasn't surrounded with that. So she made it a point to go above and beyond with her children. And so growing up in that, that shapes you, right? As an adult is where I think I had to learn to not do the judging. You know what I mean? Like, because if you're not judging, then you're attempting to see them with a different set of eyes. Is that love? Is that kindness? What is that? But that's super cool. And so I hope our listeners, and I know my takeaway from this will be to do that more. Do that with try to do that with everybody you meet, right?
Absolutely. And I mean, we've even heard on occasion, even in trading, are you in a place of fear, or are you in a place of abundance and love? And that can make a difference even in your trading, on whether or not you see the world half full, half empty, whether you focus on the negative, whether you're accepting the things that are coming towards you. And I'm not an expert in this by any means. It's just the things that I know that I've been working on, I've heard, and it makes a difference. It makes a huge difference.
Awesome.
My question with this, the other part that arose from this when we were reading, or when I was reading this part, was the actual act of mentally removing yourself from a situation. So if you're inside of a situation that's really difficult, whether you are struggling with something, whether you can't actually step away from it, but taking that mental break and moving into something that is positive, it's a skill. I think it's a skill. Now, the question is that a skill that comes naturally, or does it need to be taught? That kind of thing. I guess the question that I had was with him in the intern camp, was his strength and his resilience what led to him actually having these moments where he would have conversations with his wife, or was it a choice that he made and that gave him strength to carry on? And I guess that was one of my curiosities when I was reading that section. But ultimately, it doesn't matter because it works.
Right.
Right. It's a great coping mechanism. It's a great coping skill. And if any of you out there are struggling with anything, this is one of those things that you can kind of add into your repertoire as a tool.
Yeah. That what'd you call it? I think you were saying the mental vacation. I can relate to that, which is kind of like visualization. It
is absolutely,
but with a lot of feeling in it, because some people probably, we've all done it, right? Where we're like, okay, I think I'm going to visualize this and that and this and that. But this guy was so intent, he's like, it probably almost became an addiction where he's like, I can't wait to have this moment of just being able to just step away mentally. Maybe time flies, or just,
yeah, who knows?
Whatever. But yeah, I totally agree. Whether he learned it or he was born with it, the fact that he's sharing it and, people are teaching this and we're learning it, and just repetitive in different avenues, we come across this stuff, but we have to remind ourselves to do that.
Mm-hmm.
It is a skill. It is a coping mechanism. It is all of those things, and probably need to do it more than not.
It's funny because when I can't remember how old I was, but I remember living with this family, and they taught me that love was a choice. It wasn't something you fall in and out of. It was something that you choose to do on a regular basis. And I've lived my life that way. And I just see this, like the whole thing, the power in it. I thought this was really empowering. That's all I got to say. For any of you out there, stay tuned for the next episode. We'll catch you in the next one.
Thank you for joining us today. For more information about the show, as well as our list of current reads, check us out at www.theelevatedtrader.com.
Remember to subscribe and share if you found value in today's episode. See you next week.